One Baltimore council member is pushing for more transparency from City Hall. His new bill that would shed light on how your tax dollars are being spent and who's joining him. Residents on high alert after an employee in Canton is robbed and shot.
People cannot expect to be safe. In fact, they have to be wary all the time.
Experts weigh in on the impact to downtown this ongoing crime is having. A blame game between state school leaders and their web vendor over the publishing of embargoed test scores.
The only people who are being left out are the parents and the taxpayers.
Fox 45 News Project Baltimore questions why neither party is taking responsibility. A new church sexual abuse report as more victims are now able to demand justice. The mass action lawsuit that could be filed on their behalf.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. A big move for transparency at City Hall tonight. City Councilman Yitzi Schleifer introducing a bill to shed more light on how City Hall spends your tax dollars.
This bill is aimed at solving that and just making it very simple as to who has to file information so that the public can really see where their tax dollars are going to.
Well, the bill would make nonprofits show receipts for how they spend money they get from the city.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has demanding transparency from leaders for nearly 2 years now. She joins us live now outside City Hall. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, we've been trying to figure out how some of these city programs spend your tax dollars for several years. And now this bill from Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer is looking to make more of that information readily available to the public.
Good afternoon.
Support for the Accountability and Transparency in City Grant-Making Bill.
Next up, Madam Clerk, if you could go to the next bill.
City Council Bill 23-0376
is growing.
So this bill is set out to clarify who would need to file proper financial disclosures and what reporting would be required.
The crux of the push to shed new light on how nonprofits spend grants coming from the city, especially as City Hall allocates its $641 million share of the American Rescue Plan funds.
We see tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars going out the door to organizations, and it's important that we have the same level of transparency.
After years of digging into how the community-based organizations running Safe Streets spend taxpayer dollars, more questions arise usually than answers, often coming up short on details. But it's not just Safe Streets where we've hit a dead end with information. Other programs like Clean Core are surrounded in more questions too.
I too have been asking a lot of questions, and so hopefully this just has a uniform process in how all of these programs are handled.
City Council President Nick Mosby, along with council members Zeke Cohen and Danielle McCrae, co-sponsoring the legislation, leaving several elected leaders not signing their name to the transparency effort. So we tried to find out why. Do you plan to support the transparency and accountability in the grant-making process bill?
Okay. I haven't had a hearing on that yet.
I know, but it was introduced today. Do you plan to co-sponsor it? Do you think that's important to bring more transparency to that effort? Councilman Christopher Burnett not interested in answering, but others seem to be on board. Do you think that there should be more transparency in the way that the city handles the grant-making process and how those nonprofits spend the money?
Yeah, I think, of course, we want to make sure that nonprofits are spending money well.
Do you have any plans to support it? Do you think that there should be more transparency in the grant-making process within Baltimore City?
There should be more transparency and seeing exactly where the grants go. I fully support my colleague.
The plan has been sent for a hearing with the Rules and Legislative Oversight Committee. Now, it's unclear when we'll see this piece of legislation brought up for more debate during that committee hearing, although Councilman Schleifer tells me he's willing to work with anyone to get this plan moving forward. We're live outside City Hall. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Fox 45 News has been demanding answers about how the Safe Streets program spends its money for more than a year. In January, Baltimore City handed over more than 450 pages worth of Safe Streets related contracts after Fox 45 News threatened legal action. The contract shed light on how the program operates. The names of the employees are redacted because Safe Streets says they're not city employees. They work for the nonprofit that operates that location. You can find more on those contracts on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement is not one of the city agents Agencies subject to audits. Adam Andrzejewski with the OpenTheBooks.com says that's a problem.
There isn't any evidence as to whether or not Safe Streets is performing well or not performing at all. There's no annual audit on this. And we've called on Comptroller Bill Henry. Look, the citizens in Baltimore, they need a city watchdog. Bill Henry is the comptroller. He ran on it. The mayor can also perform this function, but people need to be able to follow the money.
Well, as he mentioned, Comptroller Bill Henry promised to expand the audit system on the campaign trail back in 2020, but that hasn't happened yet. Take a listen.
We need to not just do the bare minimum audits of city agencies that are required by the charter. We need to do as many as need to be done.
Well, we've seen misuse of funds when it comes to anti-violence programs. According to a report in the Philadelphia Inquirer, an anti-violence grant program in that city left millions of dollars unspent and thousands more unaccounted for. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement needs to be audited? The poll just opened. So far, 100% of voters say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
A couple kidnapped and forced to take money out of ATMs in Fed Hill. Chaotic crowds in the Inner Harbor, and now an armed robbery and shooting in Canton. There are concerns violence in neighborhoods many consider safe could keep people away from Baltimore City. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with a closer look. Keith?
Well, Mary, no word tonight if this T-Mobile store will reopen tomorrow. It was closed today after that bold, brazen crime, and tonight the potential impact of crimes like this one in communities across the city. In Canton, a startling shooting. A T-Mobile employee shot inside the store Sunday afternoon during an armed robbery. Several customers also robbed before the suspects ran away. A bold daytime crime in the city's historic waterfront neighborhood. Tonight, the caper in Canton, another example of a senseless crime with no place and no one seemingly immune. In downtown Baltimore, which is roughly about 2 miles away from Canton, concern over what happened in that trendy, vibrant neighborhood and the recent unlawfulness seen downtown.
If I have to be down, that's one thing. If I'm not down here, I don't think I'd go down. Certainly not after dark.
I think things also get played up a lot because it's easier to talk about bad things than good things.
Still, for some, apprehension about taking a trip downtown. Fueled perhaps by images like these. 2 juveniles shot last month, Easter Sunday night, a short distance away from dozens of officers trying to break up a fight at the Inner Harbor. A chaotic scene that night, triggering heavy police response and tense moments for a wife and mother having dinner at a nearby restaurant.
The people, they did their best inside the store to let us know, inside the restaurant to let us know that, it was as far as like locked down, like nobody could get out.
Unsettling scenes, crime that this economist believes could have a devastating impact on downtown Baltimore and other communities.
It destroys jobs. It destroys small business. It destroys main streets. It makes it less likely that people are going to invest in the community to create construction jobs. It's bad for tax base.
Well, no update tonight on that T-Mobile employee who was injured, but police do say that individual was just 22 years old. We're live now in Canton. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. April was one of the deadliest months this year in Baltimore with 25 homicide victims. This year, 88 people have been killed, a marked decline from this time last year, tied for the lowest over the past 5 years, in fact. However, crime historically picks up in the spring and summer months.
There are reports Mayor Brendan Scott's chief of staff and spokesperson are no longer with his office. Fox 45 News went directly to the mayor's office today to confirm those reports, but we were told there was no one there to speak with us. There has been high turnover within the mayor's office. Mayor Scott's last chief of staff left last fall. His last communications director was asked to leave in January.
Tracking still some rain showers this evening here in Baltimore to Towson, Eldersburg, as well as down to Edgemere and Edgewood. And even on the northern portion of the eastern shore to Elkton, there's some of those rain showers. Those continue overnight, and even tomorrow morning could still have some moist roads to deal with. And then by tomorrow afternoon, here we go again. I'm going to let you know how long this gloomy pattern lasts and when we could be touching near 80 again in the forecast. And my Weather Authority forecast in a couple of minutes.
Well, it is another black eye for the Baltimore City public school system. A newly released report from the Maryland Inspector General's office finding more than $500,000 meant for student transportation may have been misspent.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has details. Rebecca?
Yeah, the money was allocated over a 3-year span to a cab company for student rides to school. But it turns out those rides might have never happened. According to this new IG report, from the 2018 to 2019 school year and the 2021 to 2022 school year, there were about 1,100 students and 3,900 cases where the students had not been in school, but the taxi company claimed that they were taken there. In total, racking up nearly $632,000 worth of controversial charges. The report reads in part, quote, "The results of our data analysis indicate BCPS has paid for taxi cab services for students not attending school, and that Yellow Cab potentially provided fraudulent invoices and vouchers." The OIGE has referred the case to the Maryland Attorney General's office for further review. Now, the report also recommends that the school system ask for reimbursement from the cab company and keep a closer eye on these charges moving forward. I've reached out to BCPS for a response to this report, but as of news time tonight, have not heard back. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, finger pointing over who's responsible for publishing redacted MCAP scores and why they've been since removed. Project Baltimore is pushing for more answers. Also ahead tonight, a Fox 45 News exclusive interview with newly installed Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCullough. In a wide-ranging sit-down, we learn about his approach to dealing with crime in the county. And coming up at 10:30 tonight, a new law enabling more church abuse survivors to seek justice. The ads popping up and why lawsuits could be stalled for months.
Who posted Maryland state test results online and why were they then removed and redacted?
Yeah, that move made it harder for the public to see how schools are performing. As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, no one is taking responsibility.
Do you still feel this is a cover-up?
This is absolutely a cover-up.
It's now been 2 weeks since Project Baltimore first spoke with Sean Kennedy, a visiting fellow at the Maryland Public Policy Institute. And in those 2 weeks, a lot has happened.
I see this as an unfolding scandal where the superintendent's going to have to resign. It's just a matter of when.
The latest development? The Maryland State Department of Education, under Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry, has doubled down, again, blaming its web vendor for a mistake that allowed the public to see state test results before they could be further redacted.
It's a he said, she said, and unfortunately, the only people who are being left out are the parents and the taxpayers.
Here's the backstory. On April 20th, the Maryland State Department of Education posted this 3-page statement to its website. The statement was issued in response to Project Baltimore's investigation, exposing how MSDE changed the way it reports student test scores to the public, redacting much of the data. In the statement, MSDE blamed its web vendor, the Canton Group, for publishing embargoed data before it could be redacted to protect student privacy. MSDE's statement said, Mr. Papst gained access to the embargoed data that was prematurely posted by the MSDE web vendor. But the Canton Group says that is not true. On Friday, the Canton Group sent this statement to Fox 45. The statement claims MSDE has initial ultimate and total control over the posting of information, and an individual with MSDE, under the direction of supervisors at MSDE, published the information in question on January 19th, 2023, after a full approval process.
Well, somebody behind the scenes knows who did it, knows why they did it, and when they did it, but we don't have any of those answers. And then blaming each other doesn't resolve the questions of why it was done, when it was done, and who did it.
For nearly 20 years, the Canton Group has been the web vendor for the Maryland State Department of Education. But MSDE is not backing down from its allegation. Project Baltimore asked MSDE to respond to the Canton Group's claim that it was not at fault. We received this email. The department's original position and statements still hold true. Previous information that was released remains as stated. And when we took that response back to the Canton Group on Monday, it too doubled down, reiterating in a statement it has handled all data and approvals appropriately, and Canton does not have physical access to post information on the MSDE website. What this means is no one is taking responsibility for publishing what MSDE called embargoed data, but somebody put it online.
Mr. Chaudhry.
When we tried last week to speak with the state superintendent, Mohammed Chaudhry,
removing test scores from the website,
he locked himself behind a door.
There was clearly an ulterior motive here, and we need to know what the answer was there.
It's vital, according to Kennedy, that taxpayers know the truth, because in January, when Project Baltimore downloaded the original state test scores from MSDE's website, we were able to report to the public that 23 Baltimore City schools and 7 Baltimore County schools had 0 students among those tested score proficient in math. But now, much of that data has been redacted. The state says it was done to protect student privacy, but some, including Kennedy, say the test results were replaced with asterisks to hide how poorly some schools are performing.
There is no way out of this situation other than Chaudhry leaving his post and doing so immediately. How do we ask students to be held accountable, teachers to be held accountable, when the leader of the state school system won't answer direct questions and take responsibility for his actions or the actions of his subordinates? It's ridiculous.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Project Baltimore is waiting to hear the president of the State Board of Education, Clarence Crawford. He told Fox 45 News he didn't know that data was being changed. Friday, Fox 45 sent both President Crawford and Governor Wes Moore an email asking when they became aware the data was removed and redacted from the website. We also asked how they became aware. We're still waiting for their responses.
Well, Fox 45 News sits down for a one-on-one interview with Baltimore County's new police chief coming up at 10:30. What he's saying about the growing concern about crime in the county.
The nation's largest LGBTQ+ advocacy group has some demands for Bud Light. I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington with what they're asking for. Straight ahead.
And it looks like overnight, some on and off showers, a continuation of the weather we had today. Temperatures settled down into the low to mid 40s by morning. Watch out for some wet spots. And guess what? The next 2-3 days still feature chances of rain and some cool temperatures. I'll let you know when things are going to warm up, and we're going to have some sunshine by the weekend. It's in my Weather Authority forecast.
A Massachusetts middle schooler was sent home from class for a statement he made with his T-shirt. The 12-year-old's shirt looks something like this edited example. We want to point out this is an edited example, stating, quote, "There are only two genders." The boy was apparently removed from gym class and told to change his shirt after others complained that it made them feel unsafe. He refused and was picked up from school by his father. The boy says he was protected by the First Amendment. The national desk reached out to the school and the district for comment, but so far we've not heard back.
Well, Bud Light sales continue to trend downward a month after announcing a controversial partnership with a trans activist and social media star.
Sinclair National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has more on how the nation's largest LGBTQ plus activist group is responding.
The controversy surrounding Bud Light remaining heavy following intense conservative backlash.
Let me say something to all you.
For the polarizing March Madness partnership with trans activist Dylan Mulvaney.
I got some Bud Lights for us.
The Human Rights Campaign, the nation's largest LGBTQ plus civil rights group, penning a letter to Bud Light parent company Anheuser-Busch. The Hill reporting the letter asks for renewed support of the trans community, reading in part, quote, "When faced with anti-LGBTQ plus and transphobic criticism, Anheuser-Busch's actions demonstrate a profound lack of fortitude in upholding its values of diversity, equity, and inclusion." In response to the backlash, Bud Light placed 2 executives on leave, released a patriotic ad.
Rooted in the heart of America.
And Anheuser-Busch's CEO releasing a statement saying they never intended to be a part of a discussion that divides. Former Anheuser-Busch president Anson Frericks telling Fox Business it's still making headlines and losing profits because the company has an accountability problem.
Anheuser-Busch has forgotten who it is accountable to, and it's accountable to its shareholders. We're a month into this controversy, and the reason that we're still into this and still talking about it is Anheuser-Busch has not been clear about what Bud Light stands for. Traditionally, it's been an apolitical brand that did not get into politics.
The latest data released Monday shows Bud Light sales continuing to spiral downwards, dipping 21% lower than this time last year, according to Bump Williams Consulting. Sales for competitors, Coors Light and Miller Lite, both up more than 20%.
Anheuser-Busch stocks remain down slightly since the controversy began, but they are still the world's largest beer company. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
We can anticipate in the state of Maryland there will be thousands of people seeking representation.
Survivors of sex abuse are flooding the phone lines of lawyers across the state following a new law ending the statute of limitations on those cases. What to expect as more survivors come forward.
President Joe Biden's son in court today over child support. What we learned from the hearing this afternoon.
We are following three big stories at 10:30.
After nearly 6 years of service, Senator Ben Cardin announces that he won't run for re-election, why he's stepping down, and what the future could hold for his seat.
A new law passed in Maryland allowing adults who were sexually abused as children to sue their abusers is encouraging victims to come forward. What lawsuits to expect moving forward as law firms look to speak to survivors.
Fox 45 News questions Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCullough after 2 deadly shootings in a week's time.
I'm always concerned when there's any type of violence in Baltimore County, first of all. I'm concerned about the fact that there's so many guns out there and that people are willing to use them.
Fox 45's Vincent Hill sat down with the new chief today.
He pressed McCullough on the growing concerns about crime in the county and how he plans to address it leading into the summer months.
Chief, thank you so much for sitting down with us. So one of the things we've seen, especially in surrounding areas, Baltimore City, is a rise in teen violence. Coming out of Annapolis, there were a lot of laws passed that kind of limit what juveniles will face from a criminality standpoint. Do you think that hinders how your police can actually deal with juveniles?
It will impact how we deal with juveniles, but like everything in police work, we find a way to get the mission done. We find a way to keep our community safe.
We had the incidents at the Towson Town Center, large juvenile disturbances there. As summer approaches, how are you going to tackle that?
The best way to predict the future is to look at the past. You mentioned the fact that we can monitor social media and those types of things. There are things that we do. Of course, we make sure that we have a visible presence.
And you mentioned boots on the ground, but how hard is that being 200 plus officers short?
We're fortunate that we have a big county and we have a large department. So we're able to shift our resources to the areas where we need to shift our resources to address the problems that we have.
Baltimore City has imposed a curfew. Do you think that is something the county could lean towards?
Well, I mean, that's something I can't speak to right now in terms of any type of curfew. What we seek to do is to create an environment where everyone feels safe.
But if a curfew was imposed, just hypothetically speaking,
I mean, like I said, I can't speak to whether I would support something like that. It would be something that I would have to research and look at.
The county's had 2 homicides in a week. Are you concerned there's a rise of gun violence here in the county?
I'm always concerned when there's any type of violence in Baltimore County, first of all. I'm concerned about the fact that there's so many guns out there and that people are willing to use them.
Do you have a strategic plan to tackle guns? Or are you going to set up maybe a gun task force or anything like that?
What we're going to do is take a holistic approach to policing. We're going to be proactive. I've asked my patrol commanders to make sure that our officers are out there, they're being visible.
I had one mother whose son goes to Towson University told me she fears she's going to get that call one day that her son is no longer alive. What do you say to the citizens of Baltimore County? A lot of that moved from the city to the county to feel safer, but now they're at a point where they say they don't feel safe.
As a parent, I clearly understand what they're saying, but I also would reassure them as their chief is that we're doing everything to make Baltimore County a safe place to live and to work and for our children to go to school.
There's only a road that separates the city from the county. Do you think that some of the crime you've seen, whether it's at the Towson Town Center, the murder of 16-year-old Trayshawn Harmon from Baltimore City, do you think that's a result of crime spilling over from the city into the county?
I think crime knows no boundaries. Crime is everywhere. Crime does not know the city or county line.
Well, you can watch Vincent's entire interview with the Baltimore County Police Chief right now. Use your phone's camera to scan that QR code on your screen. That will take you right there. Go to our website, foxbaltimore.com.
The report from the Maryland Attorney General's office detailing the decades of sexual abuse within the Baltimore Archdiocese and a new law allowing adults who were abused as children to sue their abusers is encouraging more abuse survivors to come forward. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has a closer look at what's happening and what's to come.
Well, local lawyers that I spoke with say after decades of abuse and cover-ups, the Catholic Church is in for a legal reckoning, one that will likely take a team of law firms to deliver. From a flurry of billboards To a flood of internet ads, lawyers from across the country are seeking out Maryland sex abuse survivors with a wave of lawsuits coming October 1st, the day the recently passed Child Abuse Act is set to take effect, ending Maryland's statute of limitations for civil child sexual abuse cases.
Today, certainly in Maryland, is a day of reckoning.
The law passing on the heels of a bombshell report released by the Maryland Attorney General detailing a 4-year investigation finding more than 600 children were abused by nearly 160 priests within the Baltimore Archdiocese.
Well, we know there are approximately 600 potential plaintiffs. There could be 1,000 or 2,000 more.
And they're reaching out every single day in large numbers.
Baltimore City lawyer Robert Jenner sits on a National Survivors Advisory Board and helped rally behind the Child Victims Act in Annapolis.
Survivors now have an avenue to get the accountability that they've been wanting their whole life.
But he says that quest for accountability may start with a significant hurdle. A provision in the new law includes a measure that would put the lawsuits on hold until the Maryland Supreme Court can determine whether the new law is constitutional.
The lawyers will be working together collaboratively to get a single voice, to get the best possible setting we can.
Jenner says his law firm has already joined forces with 2 other local law firms and is looking to bring on at least 6 more for a mass action lawsuit with massive amounts of money.
These cases potentially are worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.
And decades of alleged trauma and suffering on the line.
These are difficult cases. Clients are coming forward not only to seek accountability for the people that wrong them, but also to make sure this doesn't happen again to other children in the state of Maryland.
And I reached out to the Baltimore Archdiocese today asking if they intend to challenge this new law in the Maryland Supreme Court, but as of News Time tonight, I have not heard back. In Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. And you can find more on the Child Victims Act and the Church Sex Abuse Report on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Baltimore City authorities announced that they dismantled a drug trafficking organization in southwest Baltimore's Shipley neighborhood. 5 people have been indicted in connection with that organization. Authorities say the group used guns, violence, and had a marked territory, all characteristic of gangs, but the city is hesitant to use that word. Fox 45 News pressed the police commissioner on that today.
But are neighborhood gangs a problem in Baltimore?
Well, neighborhood gangs are they're not the gangs in the traditional sense. They're loosely organized, and they don't have a hierarchy structure as in traditional gangs that you might see portrayed on TV. But they are an issue because some of them are tied to violence, and they are tied to drug trafficking, which is also tied to violence. And so it's all connected.
Well, officials say one person connected to the group, identified as Kenneth Davis, is still at large. Anyone with information is asked to call police.
Baltimore City Councilman Christopher Burnett is introducing 2 bills addressing the use of surveillance and facial recognition technology in Baltimore. One of those bills would establish community control over police surveillance. It would require any new surveillance technology proposed by the police department to receive community input and approval from the City Council. It would also create an oversight board to monitor the use of surveillance technologies. Another bill would put stricter regulations on the use of facial recognition technology. It would require the public to be notified of the use of the technology and create an oversight board. Those bills will now be heard in committee.
Baltimore prosecutors have dropped an assault charge against State Delegate Kaylin Young. Fox 45 News obtained this exclusive video of the incident at the center of the case. Now, it happened during a town hall late last year at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum downtown. You can see a man interrupts the event, and you can see Delegate Young escorting him out. Now, Young's attorney remained confident charges would be dropped throughout the entire process.
Maryland Senator Ben Cardin will not run for re-election in 2024. The 79-year-old Democrat has served 3 terms as U.S. Senator. He started his political career 58 years ago in the House of Delegates back in 1967. Now the senator says it is time to step aside.
I'm not going to retire. I'm going to find other ways to serve, but it will be 58 years.
that I've served continuously in elected office, 18 campaigns. And it's time to realize that this is not just a 2-year commitment to run for re-election. It would have been an 8-year commitment, 2 years to run and 6 years in term. And I think it's best for me to make the decisions when I'm in control of making my own decisions.
Senator Cardin's announcement will likely start a competitive primary with State Representative David Trone and Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks, both expected to run as Democrats. Former Governor Larry Hogan will likely face pressure from Republicans to run, but one political expert Fox 45 News spoke with today says that's not likely.
Governor Hogan, I don't see him doing this for one reason. This is where the problem is. If he runs, and first, can he win the primary because his own handpicked successor, Kelly Schultz, couldn't win her primary. The Republicans